Here I go again, here I go again. I'm in Los Angeles,
Here coming off a Super Bowl win against the Ravens. So in this video I will be talking about our final roster, who made the cut, some players that I drafted that I initially liked that I didn't end up making the final roster here after the preseason and after everything that I seen from free agents to who got released by teams, who got kept on practice squads and whatnot. So here are the players that aren't going to be able to go over 70 overall. Obviously, a bunch of tight ends and a couple players that we brought back that we weren't able to re-sign in the off-season on long-term contracts. So our quarterback room stays the same. Our running back room gets a little bit different. Corey Grant obviously making the team. I let it be known that he was one of the focus points for our running back room. Same age as Henderson, who played really good last year in terms of red zone and third down and fourth downs. But he has 6 more speed, which should boost his burst off the line and get a little bit more. And our line obviously got a little bit better. Travis Homer, who I'll look to develop throughout the year. In terms of our receiver room, receiving core, Steven Sims has gone up to an 80 overall after I re-signed him in the offseason. So he'll definitely be my starting receiver. Emmanuel Hall obviously being the backup. The overall speed of our receiving core has went up tremendously. Obviously, we brought JJ back off last year, and we'll I thought about upgrading him, but JJ's more of a third option anyway, so I might end up upgrading him before we play this first game here, which won't happen in this video, but it will happen in the next video that comes out on this channel. And then we have KJ, who I talked about getting. Malcolm Sheets was a guy who I didn't really have my eye on, but I combed through all the players of every position that I thought I needed to shore up this 53-man roster, and he ended up making the cut. Obviously, Khalif Raymond, who came from the Titans, huge speed, so he'll probably get the cut over Nelson here. But that determines on the upgrades. I probably will end up just upgrading him because he'll be going into year 29. Even though he's only 6 years pro, he'll be going on 29 years old. So his speed will start to fall off. And Khalif, who I signed on a long-term deal, he will remain good for at least 4 years. So I'll probably end up just leveling him, using him as my third man along with Khalifi Raymond. Probably out of that speed flex position. Moving on to tight end, Will Ty will probably be our starter just because we have him on a 2-year, and then Voller will probably be his backup. We have Matt Lacoste, who I talked about getting into this room, and Andrew Beck, who I also talked about getting into this position for our team long term. I'll probably try to sign Voller to a long-term deal and Beck to a long-term deal. Obviously, that's subject to change, but as you can see, good speed all around in this position. Clark, who we drafted, he will not be able to go up any overall this season, so he'll just be racking up however many potential upgrades he'll have, and then we'll look to release him next season and take that cap hit that he gets, and then sign him to a long-term deal, 7 years, to take him into his 31st year as a pro. Greg, who we signed long-term, we'll look to keep him here just as a relief backup or a fatigue backup until we can find a suitable replacement that's a little bit younger and a little bit better. But he'll be here for a minute. John, who we signed long-term in this free agency, who was a pretty good pickup for us. He'll be starting at left guard, backed up by Von Mims, who will look to thrust into a starting position hopefully next year after he sits on the bench for a year. Obviously a rookie that we drafted who has star potential at 21 years old. Yeah, we'll definitely look to try to get him into a starting position. And then Copper, who was drafted in this outstanding lineman draft for us coming out of Oregon, he'll be starting this year. He'll have the opportunity to get up to 70, and then we'll probably we won't allow him, and then he'll also be another cap hit going into next season that we'll look to sign long term. We'll probably actually sign him to a couple deals after he gets year 29. We might just resign him to a 7-year and take him the length of his contract, depending on, well, we probably won't be able to do that since he'll be able over 70 overall, but he will be a guy that we look to get to that 70 cap and then re-sign long term, and then his backup being Murray, who we signed long term. I think we got him maybe on a 7-year, 3-year deal maybe. But yeah, he's just obviously a condition backup, fatigue backup, or an emergency backup, depending on whether or not. I haven't decided. I'll probably just stick to injuries off, unless, you know, somebody or multiple people say, hey, you know, this might be a better idea to develop whatever. But in terms of just storylines of players that I want to develop, I think it'd be better just to have injuries turned off, because those can just hamper a season. But it does give a little bit of realism, so I'd see if somebody said something about making that change. And then Collins here, who we signed long term, he'll be the starter over at this right guard position with Alex, who we had on our target list coming into the preseason week 1. We got him. We'll look to develop him, but I mean, he's not long term. We'll probably end up drafting a replacement to put at right guard. Hopefully get all starters that are young to sign long term deals here. And then obviously our last and one of our best picks of the draft, Francis Peters, who will look to get to that 70 cap, take that cap hit for the remainder of his contract after this year, and then sign him to a long term to take him to year 30. And then his fatigue backup, who we signed post draft. Jordan's, who we signed long term, we moved him from linebacker to this left tackle. Tremendous speed, obviously, one of our fastest linebackers, which was his age along with his speed was the reason that I put him here. And he was entangled with Matthew Thomas, who was one of our best linebackers of last year, that I moved to this position just because they're both 25 and 86 to 90 speed and excel. So I put both of them at our ends, see if they could make a difference here, just getting that speed off the edge. Nazir and Ridgeway I ended up getting free agency wise, and then I had to make a few cuts to make this roster work. All of these dudes are workhorses, power rushers to get that speed up the middle that we want, and run stops to shore up the run and the line there, so that way we can get good stops on our 4-6 concepts and our 5-2s and our 4-3s. So that way we can shore up all those defensive looks coming into next season. Willie Harry, probably he might start. I'll look into all these, but obviously we got speed at our linebacking groups are all stellar. Not really concerned with any of them at this point. But yeah, Willie Harvey being the top of this position. So we'll look into that. Obviously, all these linebackers are signed long term. Troy Reeder, who's one of our low-key picks, who is one of the guys that just slid really low in our free agency. He got the middle linebacking start. Noah Dawkins, who is the star and captain of our defense, the anchor really, and then Jefferson, who I'll probably look to move to that left outside linebacker position and maybe move maybe move Willie Harvey to that middle linebacker anchored position for that those Mike blitzes up the middle, because he's a good run stop type linebacker. And then Dotterson, who's just really more of a project at this point, just kept him in this position just because I thought about moving him to linebacker, but it really lowered and hampered his overall down to like 54. It was just a bad look and a bad overall for our team, so I kept him here at right outside linebacker. He's more of a pet project at this point, who's got amazing speed and amazing acceleration, along with Jefferson, who's just a little bit younger and in terms of 62 to 68, a whole lot better. And Malik will be the next man up for who I look to sign, who's already signed long term. I think he's on a deal that'll take him to year 29 or 30 for his age. But yeah, he'll definitely be the next man up after Noah reaches his 99 overall. I move him to more of a secondary role and focus on Malik to carry the load defensively. Greg Stroman, who's starting at cornerback, I considered putting him at safety, but I figured he'd make more of an impact locking down whoever the star receiver is on the other side of the ball if they have one, because I figured safety, really, I'm not looking for a coverage guy. I'm looking for a hybrid speed guy, and you can get speed anywhere, really. But Greg becoming one of the lockdowns, and I'll probably alter every year a cornerback or a safety who might be moved to cornerback if he becomes like that lockdown type like Greg has became throughout last year. He was amazing. And then Obi backing him up, who's a great coverage man-to-man guy. A ton of picks and a ton of key plays last year in the playoffs and regular season for this team. So I'll look to keep him in that secondary position. All of these dudes have speed, obviously. And then Greg will be a guy who I look to develop throughout this year, but obviously him and Wiltz, who I added late here, and then Mark Fields, who I want to sign long-term. A ton of guys that I brought in here late towards the end of this postseason or preseason that just got cut at the end of waivers and whatnot, who I look to bring in just to see how high they can develop and whether I can sign them long-term next year, just to have them on this team, just to say, hey, I'm looking at these dudes to potentially lead this team in the future. Obviously, Kevon, I probably won't re-sign him next year, seeing as how he'll go into year 27 at 70 overall, and Jimmy, who will be going into 26, and Hardy, who I already signed long-term. I might look to cut him and move towards these younger guys, as cornerback might be one of the places where I look to draft in the next year, along with safety. Simone probably won't be starting here. I'll probably give that position to Brandon. And then obviously Dan comes back. He'll be a huge key contributor who I look to develop throughout the year. Obviously, he's already got like 10 development points, so he's technically at an 80, but as long as I don't develop him, he'll be eligible for re-sign this upcoming off season. And I'll look to sign him, lock him down long term, and make him a defensive anchor on this side of the ball. And then Zedrick Woods, who's another pet project along with that right outside linebacker position. He's got great speed and great acceleration, so I'll look to develop him throughout the year. Also, he's got youth on his side. He's a little bit younger than Brandon Bryant, who I signed long term into his 30s. Zedrick will be one of those guys that, yeah, I look to develop to 70 overall if he can get to that height, and then re-sign long term next year. And then I did end up going with Jonathan Brown just because he played so well in the playoffs for us, and I decided, it was so close between the two that I'd choose the power over the accuracy, because the accuracy is more of a user-controlled thing, and the kicking power is more left up to the player. So I figured, 5 overall is worth the 14 overall kick accuracy that I'm giving up over on that side of things in terms of kicking. And also I had them both sign long-term for free agency just to have them battle it out. And obviously I gave the nod to Jonathan Brown. I gave his experience over the youth. And I figured, since he played so well for us in the playoffs, that he deserved it. He deserved the nod. Also, he has greater speed than the other kicker, which isn't a huge factor, but it was a slight factor in case I decide to ever run that kind of set. But if it comes to that, I mean, I'll probably just go to the regular offensive set. Those kicking sets don't work as well, but that's a good third option in case injuries do become a factor. Then I'll be able to have him as a relief, a 4-string relief quarterback if it ever comes to that. And then punter, I chose Ryan Quigley. His accuracy was a bit more than everybody else's, and usually if it's past half field, I'm not looking towards coughing cornering the punt. But obviously that was an issue in our special teams last year. We had at least a dozen opportunities that I could have counted that we could have coffin cornered them within 10 yards, and the punter just didn't make the punt. He was just wasn't accurate enough with his ball placement. So that I look to improve every which way on these in terms of special teams, offense and defense. So I look to improve on all sides of the all aspects of the football team, kind of in a Belichick way. I like to focus on all parts, and I figured Ryan Quigley, even at age 30, would give me the best chance this year of just getting the special teams plays that I would like to turn the ball game more in my favor if it comes down to that. And then draft picks, we picked up 2 last season, and we're obviously going to trade away that first round pick, so that might give us another second or third round pick, or maybe even both, coming into next season. So that'll be a great spot to where we can improve. Obviously, we locked down 35 players long term that are on long term deals that I'll look to bring back next season. If not, at least 20 or 30 of those players will be coming back on long term deals. So us having those additional draft picks will only further who we want to who we'll be able to bring back long term for this team, instead of just signing a bunch of 1-year deals like we had to do this year. About half our team is on a 1-year deal. So having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably like 10 picks going into next year after I trade away that first round pick for a couple more picks. About 10 more picks that we'll have to spend on players next year if we decide. Usually I trade away the third, or not the third, the 5th to 7th round picks, depending on where our needs are at and if we need players of that caliber. But let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 18, 19, 20, 21 players on 1-year deals. But I'll look to bring a lot of these players back. Zedrick, Sheets, Chisia, Hall, who's been outstanding. Nelson probably won't be coming back. Moreland might. He might be coming back. Haley, I'll want to come back. KJ, I'll want to come back. Vollert. Seymour is on the fence for me. Lacoste is on the fence. Corey's definitely on the fence. I mean, he's a great back, but he'll be in year 28 next year. And then a bunch of throwaway players over here. Wiltz I'll look to bring back. Fields I'll look to bring back, and Beck I'll look to bring back. So 21 players on 1-year deals. About half of those, 8 or 9 of those players I'll look to bring back long term for next season. But in terms of scheme, a lot of these players do fit what I want. But if what I'm really looking at is look at the improvement from last season. We were like a 60 overall team, I think was the bare minimum that Madden can rate your team. I mean, with the cap that I set, I think 60 was the lowest they could rate me. But already you can see a massive improvements defensively. Offensively, we went from Tyree game 1. I subbed him out game 1 of our first season in favor of our Jacob Eason here, who's become our franchise type quarterback. Not really speed, but he does have some legs that we can get out of the pocket. And then obviously he's got the arm, which has improved throughout the year. I mean, he still doesn't make all the throws that we want, but he's getting there. Obviously, he's getting close to 80 overall. And we look at him here. He's becoming less of a strong arm quarterback and more of a accuracy quarterback, getting all into the mid 80s here, which is exactly what I want. Obviously, we want to get the accuracies up into the 90s, the throw and the run into the 80s, and the play action into the 80s. Not really worried about his speed. We have running backs that all have that speed. I would like to have Tyree Jackson become that guy, but obviously, you know, we might look to bring Tyree in as a relief, you know, get a 20-point lead and then bring Tyree at a 2-score lead and then bring Tyree in as the relief. Obviously, I'm not too worried statistically about a fall off between Tyree and Jacob. His accuracies are not great. Short and mid is what I like to throw. Deep is really less of a choice, more of a requirement, especially if we get down a few scores or a score. And I look to have that big shot, or we get a turnover and I want to throw that big shot that we have. Obviously looking to expand our playbook this season. But yeah, a lot of changes on the horizon. Obviously our team's getting way better. Last season our best player was 70 overall, but now coming into this season, you know, we have a dozen players over that. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players over that threshold. 2 of those being into the 90s, which I never would have hoped for last season, but obviously our defense, the schemes that I set up for them, and just their performance on the field has set up 2 of our most key positions into being amazing players. And then obviously Dan, he doesn't even need to be into a 90 overall to show that he has what we need in terms of a little bit of coverage and then a lot of rushing the quarterback. He'll get up to an 80, hoping to resign him next season long term, and he might even get into the 85-90 range. I would not be surprised if he reaches that benchmark this year, and even beyond that, he might even get up to in the 95 because of the improved defense and the overall team XP that he'll be gaining this season. Hall, I'll look to still integrate him into the system. I want to get him up into the 80s, 85 range, along with Sims, and look to resign him long term. Grant Haley, bring him back and have him as a coverage guy, and just really just raise the bar in terms of what our defense can do and how we can perform in terms of shutting other teams down, causing turnovers, and not giving up as many ourselves. But that'll do it for this video, guys. Try to keep this a little bit shorter than our usual video for this series. Just where we're looking in terms of probably trying to go undefeated this year, just clean up a lot of the mistakes offensively. I know myself included, I make a lot of just judgment errors, timing errors. I'll look to clean that up. Want to stay, I'm going to set the goal to stay under 10 interceptions this year, and just keep the turnovers to a minimum. I don't want to be throwing any more than, like, if I throw 1 a game, I'm going to be mad at myself. Increasing the production offensively in terms of rushing yards, spreading the ball out, get Sims the looks, throw JJ some balls, get Emmanuel, obviously I want him involved in the offense, and then get more tight end looks. I want to expand more into the shotgun, just spread out the looks. I'm looking for more of a realism type, offensively and defensively. I know where I need to improve, obviously. Take less shots in terms of red zone, just take the easy points. Give our kicker the opportunity to grow and show what he's got. But that'll do it for this video, guys. Leave a like if you like the video. If you like this video, if you're seeing this live, or if you're seeing this when it drops or after it drops, if you like this video, this is the kind of video I'm looking to make. I want to make a storyline video that you guys would love to see and just watch the development of all these players. But yeah, just leave a like, watch all the videos if you like what you're seeing, and give me suggestions on how to improve, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. But yeah, I love all the support. I like to see our views go up. I love to see the sub count go up. Just seeing all the support that from you guys, that's what I love seeing. That's why I love
yeah.